What's up, fellas? In the first of today's videos, we're going to be talking about, of course, Blake Griffin, his buyout, what it means for Detroit, where he could possibly be going, and just kind of the context of the whole situation. It's kind of crazy that someone that is the caliber, or used to be the caliber of Blake Griffin, and the amount of money that he was still owed, it's kind of crazy that a player like that was bought out. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's a great place for consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well if you enjoy them, and you can check me out at various socials and a link tree down in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about Blake here. So the first point I kind of have is, like, have we ever had a buyout guy like this before? Like, I tried to go back and look and try and think about, big name players that were bought out, and I couldn't really find one that matched up with this, whether it be from a notoriety standpoint, and then that in combination with this guy was like an all-NBA caliber player a couple of years ago, and unfortunately injuries have just continued to kind of sap away at the athleticism that once made Blake really special. And, he found ways to adjust his game as he got older with, improving his shot making. He's always been an incredibly good passer, but ultimately that injury stuff just got to the point where, Detroit was never going to prioritize him the way that Blake Griffin probably felt like he should have been prioritized within the offense or within the team there. And ultimately they decided to move on a couple of weeks ago. And it turns out that trying to trade someone like Blake that has had injury issues the way that he has had and hasn't been playing well and is owed $35+ million this year and next year, turns out trading away a guy like that is incredibly difficult. Now, at the time that the news broke that, they were looking to trade him or buy him out or whatever, I found it really unlikely that he was going to end up being traded, but I also didn't really know how they were going to be able to work out a buyout. Typically, players that get bought out, based off what I know, are guys that are on expiring contracts. It's just easier that way. And what it looks like is this was a pretty aggressive buyout from Blake's perspective, in terms of giving up a lot of money just to become a free agent. I don't think it was a situation in Detroit that he really wanted to be a part of anymore either. It wasn't just something where Detroit wanted to get rid of him. I don't think he wanted to be there either, and he wanted to be in a better situation. I think ultimately he will be, but it's just really, really interesting to see a guy, like I said, of this caliber get bought out. It's really, really odd. Now, as we look at some of the other teams he could possibly go to, and then we'll look at how this potentially, impacts the cap sheet for Detroit. So the four names that I've seen on the list, you guys can let me know down in the comments if there's other names you guys have seen. But for me, I've seen the Nets, Warriors, Heat, and Blazers, which are four really interesting teams. The Nets kind of seem like the outlier among that group as a team that is a legitimate title contender this season. The other three are very good teams, but seem like a place where Blake would have more of an opportunity to score and be a bit more of an offensive focal point, whereas in Brooklyn, he would create a really crazy lineup of Kyrie, Harden, Durant, Blake, and then DeAndre Jordan or Nick Claxton, whoever the five is. But it would seem like, he would be a bit more of maybe a floor spacer, a second unit facilitator type guy, whereas in Golden State, Miami, and Portland, I think his role would be increased. Now, reportedly, the Nets are the favorite here to sign him. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, when you agree to a buyout so aggressively like this, it's clear the goal is to win a title. Blake wants to make the conference finals. He wants to make the finals. He wants to win a title. I think among these four teams, assuming these are the only four teams that he's looking at going to, the Nets present the best opportunity for that. And then, of course, he does have the relationship with DeAndre Jordan as well. And that would be, as we kind of stay with the Nets here for a second, a crazy, crazy turn of events to go from D'Angelo Russell to Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. My understanding is the Nets can absolutely sign him. There's no roadblock to bringing in Blake Griffin other than just their own interest as well as Blake's interest in joining the team. Like I said, if he did end up joining Brooklyn, my concern would just be making sure that he can make shots when he's on the floor, making sure that he can space the floor. That's been an issue for him. Obviously making sure that he can stay healthy, but on a team that has issues finding endgame lineups in terms of who to play at the five, if somehow Blake Griffin can be an endgame five for this team, like that would be game changing. I think, if Blake had come into the league a few years later, we would have seen a lot more small ball five. I think the one thing that's held him back is just not being a incredible rim protector, not having a great wingspan, not being able to protect the rim, not being like a Draymond type guy that's got a crazy long wingspan that can play up a position. I think that's the one thing that kind of held him back from being like small ball five Blake. But I think ultimately someone with his level of offensive skill in an ideal world, would be a really, really interesting 5. And then you can kind of figure out the defensive rim protection stuff later, because the Nets have kind of been sacrificing that stuff anyway by running like KD and Jeff Green as their in-game front court. So, of course, I personally would love to see Blake in Brooklyn. It seems like that's the most likely outcome. And there's some interesting lineup stuff to kind of take a look at there. For the other 3 teams, it certainly would be interesting to see him either in Golden State, Miami, or Portland. Certainly plenty of opportunity there for Blake, but again, it comes down to similar things. Can he make shots off the ball? How much of an impact can he have defensively? How much can you really count on him to stay healthy and stay on the floor? And ultimately, I think that's kind of, the one thing holding me back from being incredibly excited about this is whenever you're dealing with a player that's older, that has significant injury issues, especially a buyout guy, I think we do tend to maybe overrate the importance of that player, of adding that player to a particular team. No offense to Blake, but right now my expectations are certainly lower in terms of his potential impact on a team. And it's more so about, wow, it's crazy that a guy like this got bought out, more so than like, this is going to change the league. This is going to change the way that, we look at who is potentially competing for a title. I think it's interesting. I think that, I'm happy that he got out of Detroit and is going to be able to chase some kind of championship contention this season, but I'm kind of in wait and see mode in terms of whether or not he can be healthy and actually be impactful on a good team at this point of his career. Now, as far as it impacts Detroit, it certainly saves them money because they weren't planning on playing Blake anymore anyway. They were looking to trade him or buy him out no matter what. So, as it relates to their cap sheet, they're saving money no matter what because they weren't planning on playing him. They want to prioritize other guys. They want to prioritize Jeremy Grant. They want to prioritize some of the younger players on the front court there. I think that's the smart decision. It was a good idea to kind of part ways here. But I kind of have to wait and see on more details again because I don't have a ton of experience with guys being bought out with multiple years left on their deal. I don't know if Blake gave up, I believe he gave up, he either gave up $13 million or ended up taking $13 million on this current this year's deal. I don't know if the rest of that money is dead money. I don't know if the rest of that money for next year's dead money or if Blake Griffin is just magically disappearing from their cap sheet. I'm not sure. And that is significant for a team in Detroit that did spend some money this past offseason. And should they get rid of the Blake stuff, that really, really helps them, down the road to be able to add more pieces, be able to take on salary in order to gain assets, because now, they're looking at an incredibly aggressive rebuild in Detroit. I think that was clear before the year, despite the fact they did make some free agency additions, but ultimately, they were always going to be kind of going with this youth movement. I think they've actually established a pretty decent foundation with someone like Jeremy Grant, which is odd. A guy that was a borderline all-star caliber guy this year has had a really good offensive season compared to my own personal expectations, and is someone that, provides them value on the court as well as the next couple of years, assuming he continues to play like this, is an interesting tradable piece as well on a $20 million a year contract. Now, they got to make sure Killian Hayes gets healthy. Saddiq Bey looks like an interesting rookie. They've got some other pieces on this roster, and if the Blake stuff just magically disappears, that's kind of an incredible deal for them. Considering that if they were forced to trade him, they were going to have to give up an asset in order to get someone else to take his money. I think that's kind of where we were at with Blake from a trade perspective is, if they were going to be able to dump him, it was going to be in exchange, for also giving up an asset. And so ultimately, there's probably some money that's left on the books or however the buyout ends up working out. But I think for Detroit and I think for Blake, this is the best resolution to this situation and an unexpected one. Like I said, I didn't anticipate them being able to work out a buyout. I didn't anticipate them being able to work out a trade. And I thought it was going to become just this really awkward thing where Blake was on the roster but didn't play. But ultimately, his desire to leave, to go somewhere else, to potentially chase a title in Brooklyn, Miami, Portland, or Golden State kind of overpowered his desire to finish out his contract in Detroit. I mean, the guy's made a ton of money throughout his career, and I think he's realizing that he's got, not very much time left of potential good basketball, assuming he gets healthy and can provide any good basketball here. And so it makes sense for him to kind of chase the title. It's something we've seen, similarly from other veterans here recently. So we'll keep an eye on where Blake goes. I was hoping that by the time I recorded this video, we would know where he's going. As of the recording of this, I don't know exactly where he is. It seems like Brooklyn is the front runner, but ultimately we'll kind of have to wait and see where exactly he ends up. Brooklyn would be super fun, but I think the other teams are interesting as well. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the first video of the day, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. As I said in the beginning, I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so there's plenty of content here, the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. So be sure to check out the boxes on screen as well as the channel as a whole. If you missed those, leave a like rating on the video if you enjoyed it, and check me out at various socials in that Linktree link in the description below. With those things said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.